You open up your bag of specialty coffee. You weigh, grind, and the aroma blows your mind. Your brew goes perfectly, but what went wrong? Your water, that's what. Third Wave Water helps give that cafe quality experience at home, unlocking all the bright flavors your coffee has to offer. Just add 1 stick of minerals to a gallon of distilled water to upgrade your coffee experience. Visit thirdwavewater.com and use coupon code COFFEEPODCAST for 10% off your first order. You're listening to The Coffee Podcast. I'm Jesse Hartman. In part 1 of our interview with Marianella, we got to hear her story, what it was like to purchase a coffee farm and dig her heels into the business of growing coffee in Costa Rica specifically. We heard a story about her experiences with a co-op gone sideways. But in this episode, we get to hear more about coffee pickers. How important is picking coffee for specialty coffee?
Coffee pickers, I would say, are one of the very, very top and most important players of the value chain. And at the same time, they're probably the most undervalued player of the chain. And again, we're talking specialty coffee. When I speak, it's from the specialty coffee and the small farmer side of things. Mm-hmm. So the pickers are picking every single bean by hand. They have it in their power to make it or break it, because if you've done everything right the whole year for a beautiful harvest and the picker decides to just start picking the pinton, which is pinton for us is kind of the one that's between is still yellow and red, okay. And it hasn't matured enough, it's not ripe enough to give you the beautiful notes of the sweet coffee, or it's going to be like picking unripe bananas for a banana cream pie, So mm-hmm. They have the power in their hands and in their eyes to choose. And it's very important, and these people are very undervalued. In Costa Rica, for example, they're from Nicaragua and Panama. That's where they're coming from. And
okay. They travel to pick.
Yes. Okay. It's really temporary work and migrant kind of work. You can see them coming in, trickling in November when you're traveling around the coffee lands. You can see groups of people walking or with their cajuelas, with their baskets, and they almost like travel up the mountains as the weather changes and the harvest matures. It matures in the lower lands before, because hotter climate, more sun. And they kind of travel up the mountains as the beans are ripening up the mountains. It's a kind of a neat thing to see.
So as you said, they kind of make or break the pick. They have to pick the right ripeness. And do you have to do some training when they arrive on the farm, or how does all that work? I'm so unfamiliar with that.
Most pickers that come in have experience, but they have picked in all kinds of farms. So when they're picking for someone that is giving that coffee to a co-op, they rip the heck out of all the beans from the bandola, from the branch of the coffee. They just imagine having the hand at the very beginning of the bandola and just ripping as many beans as you can as you slide your hand down, taking in with you a whole bunch of leaves, which is really bad, right? And
right, yeah. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's bad.
Oh, yeah. It's breaking the bandolas, taking a whole lot of leaves. I mean, there are coffee fields that look that they just went through war when the pickers pick like that.
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
and it's awful. It's really bad for the coffee plant. And if the farmer, the owner of the farm, is like, yeah, we're just going to pick this whole lot, everybody hurry up, and we just have to give it to the co-op, the pickers are going to pick like that. They don't care. They want to make as many cajuelas as possible because you get paid by the cajuela.
Okay.
And so everything goes, okay? And so when they come to your farm, if they have been picking in that area, well, the first thing that you do always when you're trying to do the specialty of your coffee, of the best picking that you can do, we always did training, and it has to be extremely visual, because you can't just tell them, you just need to pick the red beans. No, I would go and pick 4 different levels of red beans until you get to what we call bull's blood red. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Because it's so purple. It's the bull's blood, really, is what it looks like. And so I would put it in my hand and go one by one. And I said, do you see the different reds here which one is the one that you need to pick. They're very quiet, they're very reserved, and it's like always this one. And then also you turn around the beans. When you take a bean from the plant, the bottom that was attached to the plant is always more yellow and ripe, and is deceiving because what's facing the sun has gotten red, but what's still in the
Oh,
shade of the plant is not. So I would always turn them around. We would always show them, see, this is not ready yet. And it's almost like they're picking grapes. It's just that red purple grape. So you
wow.
teach visually, you motivate like constantly, you supervise constantly, and the supervision is not, well, my husband and I are kind of like that. We're not going to chew you out, we're going to motivate you, because I don't think it's any good to get chewed out anyway. So it's like, this one is great, this one is great, let's try to get more like this, okay, not, let's just not do this, but more like this, you're doing great, and you have to do it all the time. Otherwise, they're going to take the easy route. And again, the incentive is you get paid by the basket. That's something we have to change in the specialty coffee work. The government of Costa Rica has a set price for cajuela, which since 2013, I don't think is increased, not even, I don't know, 4 cents. I mean, that's
Oh,
so
wow.
bad, so bad.
Yeah.
It's less than $2 a cajuela. A
Oh, man.
cajuela in your waist, if you have it, because it's around your waist, it's going to weigh between 20 and 25 pounds around your waist, okay, when it's full.
Yeah.
You're walking in terrain that is sloped, that's wet from the morning. Even if it hasn't rained, it's wet from the dew, the morning dew.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah.
you're bending over, you're trying to stretch, you're never standing on a straight ground, you're on the slopes, and sometimes holding on to the plant so you don't go sliding down. And then when you bend over, you have to squat or you're going to spill your beans. There are a
Right.
lot of things that people, when you do it, you're like, oh my God, this is hard, this is backbreaking hard work.
Yeah.
And when you pay people less than $2 to do that, I mean, who is incentivized to do a great job? Who,
You're
who
right.
would
Yeah.
want to really be picking this? So how do you do it? Just you got to motivate and you got to pay double. We've paid more than double.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes when we're starting the harvest and there's just so little coffee that has ripened to that level, they're not going to even make a cajuela for hours. Well,
Okay.
then what we do is pay them by the hour and so they can make double what they would make if they were just picking. So that's
Mm.
part of the cost of producing that has to be absorbed by the conscious roasters that understand what it really takes to get that beautiful coffee. When people
Yeah.
sit at a table and, well, stand by a table and do the Q grading, and they can define all the wonderful notes. It took all that to get to it because you had to pick the best and the perfect timing on that bean for that bean to shine so bright.
Yeah. And it doesn't sound like something you could easily mechanize.
No, yeah, for a specialty coffee, I don't see mechanizing in it as anything in the future. First of all, your eye is what's really determining the ripeness. There is a
Mm-hmm.
like a spectrometer. I forget what it's called, but you put a bean and squeeze a little bit of juice and maybe get 2 drops, and it tells you the sugar level and
Oh, okay.
the sweetness level. But first of all, it's something that somebody's going to have just kind of like maybe for if they're doing some experiment or testing, but you're not going to see the pickers going around with that and measuring
No.
it,
Yeah.
and they take the bean and you already took the bean. So if it doesn't give you 28, I think the 28 mark, 28 points or
You,
whatever it is kind of
yeah.
sweet in the sweet spot. It's not realistic. Okay. So that's
Yeah.
more for,
Yeah.
and then you can't do a robot that is even going to stand on those slopes and not fall down the slope and just break in a million pieces.
Right.
And wearing some kind of robotic hand just wouldn't make any sense. I mean, you using
Yeah.
your fingers and no. The mechanized is in industrialized types farms, I'm sure in China and in Vietnam and like in Brazil. I've seen those machines that just shake the heck out of the tree and everything falls and they pick it, kind of like, but that's conventional coffee for you.
There's no specialty reward there, is there, when you just grab them all up?
No.
And also the damage to the trees, which I never thought about.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how those trees are big. I've seen videos of those machines, and I mean, the trees are huge, but they take a pounding, and yeah. I always tell people that specialty coffee is a handmade experience, and it really is. I mean, there are maybe 40 to 60. At one year, I counted the hands that touched from the seed actually when we started. In every set of hands I can think of that we went through in the whole process. And I counted 58 pairs of hands, and I'm including the people that delivers the coffee to the back dock of a coffee shop, and the person that roasts and the barista that's serving it being the very last. I mean, I don't know any other product that goes through so many hands.
That's a lot of hands.
That's the difference of a specialty. It's just really all about the people behind it. Farmers Project as a group. Now we're a solid group of 5 farmers, and we have guest farmers because we always have people that want to be a part of Farmers Project, but we keep the core and we have guest farmers every year. And so we add some micro lots and have different micro lots as a guest. As Farmers Project, we have just the philosophy of how we do things in our farms. The main one is respect the land, respect the people. And for us, the pickers play that huge role. And we always find every year we want to do something for the people at origin that are our right hand. And then without them, we couldn't do anything. It could be our workers. It could be the children of the workers. It could be the pickers. And this year we did Protect the Pickers campaign because with climate change, we've had rains that have been really bad, relentless, and usually November in Costa Rica is where the weather switches from the rainy winter season to the summer. And today is November 30th, and we are still having way too much rain. And when the pickers arrive, one of the things that's this, really hard reality is they come with a little bag, just a plastic bag over their shoulder, and I don't know. I mean, they barely just bring a change of clothes. Many of them have nothing not a pillow, not a blanket, nothing. Sometimes they're walking on sandals or flip-flops. And how are you going to pick coffee like that? So our campaign was Protect the Pickers campaign. We said, we're going to buy everybody raincoats and boots. And within a week, we had collected over $1,500, and
nice.
In a matter of 3 weeks, we were able to buy about 178 raincoats, full body raincoats, the boots, and then we transitioned now to buying blankets and food because they're coming in with nothing, and people, they were willing to work getting wet all day. And it was amazing to see the response of the customers, the response of our roasters, our partners, our direct trade partners, sending money like they're, just buy, just helping us, just buy the raincoats, buy the boots here. And within 3 weeks, we raised over $3,000, almost $3,600 and something. And
nice.
It's heartwarming, and it's just so amazing because the power of the connection and the specialty coffee and the power of the customers that really get it. Yes, we're not solving the problem. Yes, there's much more need, but hey, we created a huge amount of positive impact, so many smiles, and at least we can, go to sleep thinking that somebody's waking up tomorrow to pick up coffee and they don't have to get wet all day long, or they have blankets to sleep in the middle of the night when it gets really cold up in the mountains. And that's a good feeling, and that's an impact worth making.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can get too caught up, especially people, podcasts, articles and systems of impact, right? And there's something wrong with the system, the system's broken, but these campaigns of impact, like you just mentioned, and was so successful. That's really encouraging to hear, and it's inspiring as well. So I hope that our listeners are inspired.
I had a couple comments in some of the Instagram pictures that we were posting and some of the updates that we were giving. I had a couple of comments. The one is like, oh, small campaigns like that don't make enough of an impact. I said, I agree. It's not enough of an impact, but it does make an impact. And I rather make an impact that criticize the size of the impact that anybody else is, that somebody else is trying to make. I mean, if we do nothing, you really are doing nothing, so it's better to do a little bit than nothing. I think that when we all talk about the specialty coffee, there's a little bit of a dark cloud or a sadness to, oh my God, it's another big problem we have. And the global situation has so many dark problems. And I actually think there is a huge hope and upside to coffee, specialty coffee, because it is a growing industry. It's a rich industry. I mean, there are $200 billion industry. Not very many industries can say that, right? So I think what we need is to take a different approach, have a new mindset about what can we do? Because if we have a rich industry and we have a problem, the problem is fixable. When we look at climate change, the challenge is a lot bigger, I think, and it may look a little bit darker, but I think that if we have companies that are making double-digit profits year after year after year, and we have $200 billion traded in coffee because of all kinds of coffee and all kinds of products, I think the solution would be very reachable. But it's going to take two sides of the equation to hopefully come to terms of what they can do. And I think first, the consumer nowadays has a huge amount of purchasing power, and their voice is in their dollar. And their dollar is what's going to drive who survives, who does better. We all come from somewhere, from some small town or from whatever city that you have your favorite places. And for most people, coffee shops are one of those places. Do you want to still have that? Do you want to see the local roastery, the local coffee shop continue to thrive? Or do you want to put your dollar in only the big commercial drive-through cheap stuff and see your own place, your town become one of those corners? I think that the new generation, third wave, fourth wave, appreciate more. They're more educated about what is going on at origin. The whole movement of farm to cup, farm to table is very important. I'm excited because I do feel that people are getting it. People are understanding that we want to know more about where our food comes from, where our coffee comes from, and who's behind it. I see possibilities of going in the right direction. And the other part is I just feel like, hey, we have a rich industry. I hope that at some point, the big companies that are kind of in this movement of acquiring more and more of the successful companies, and for example, you have the conglomerates that have acquired Pete's and Green Mountain and Stumptown and Intelligentsia, all under the umbrella of this JAB, huge investor company. Mm-hmm. Those powerful people, or Nestle and Starbucks marrying, and now they're like own, a huge amount of the market. I really hope that those very powerful people at some point are going to actually collaborate, because with the money that they have in their pockets, the problem is solvable. We have 25 million small producers in peril. About 60% of those producers are poor or living under extreme poverty. And yet we have a $200 billion industry. Okay. So, I mean, come on, people. We got to get our act together, stop talking, start writing all those white papers, and start discussing what is the problem? What's the root of the problem? We all know what the root of the problem. Everybody needs to, those big sustainability title people need to get together and collaborate in the solution. Let's stop studying the problem. Let's start working on the solution. I'm hopeful that there is a solution for coffee because coffee is a rich industry and we should distribute that richness a little bit better and be a little bit more conscious of who's really putting that coffee in that cup.
To Marianella's point, revenue in the coffee segment amounts to US $495.5 billion in 2023, according to Statista.com, which also says the market is expected to grow annually. So what do we do as coffee people who love to drink coffee and talk about coffee? What do we do with information, with this reality that a good deal of people who pick the coffee that we love do not have enough money for new shoes, but the industry is a $450 billion industry? It feels like a big question. It feels like a question we certainly cannot answer in one episode or even 2 or 3 episodes. But part of what the podcast tries to do is not just talk about these things, but talk through these things. Let's not just be another white paper. Let's solve some problems in the industry. I want to hear what you're thinking about on your end. You can tell us what you're thinking if you listen through Spotify podcasts. Now there's a response section per episode. You could just respond right in there. What did you think about the episode? You can reach out to us at info@thecoffeepodcast.org. We are not on Instagram for reasons I've mentioned before, and I just never got on TikTok and what's Twitter? Just kidding. I'm excited for what the podcast is going to produce in the next year. But for now, we'll have to wait. Might be another week or 2 before the next episode. But this is a good opportunity to say thank you for listening. If you're new to the podcast, thanks for starting out. If you've been around for the 7 years we've been here, thanks for hanging in there. I know there's been some long pauses in between content. And speaking of, it's time for me to sign off, as always. And until next time, happy brewing.